The great hall of the Zephyrian Empire stretched as far as the eye could see. Massive columns of black stone reached up to a ceiling that sparkled like stars. Admiral Krixtal Voss stood at the center of the room, his 6 arms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights as he stared at the holographic display floating before him. The display showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, the 3rd planet in what the humans called the Sol system. For 50 years, the Empire had watched this world. They had studied the strange creatures that lived there. Humans, they called themselves. Weak-looking beings with only 2 arms and soft skin. "Admiral," came a voice from behind him. "High Counselor." Thais approached on his 8 spider-like legs. His ancient face showed worry lines that had been there for centuries. "We have received a message. It comes from the Ethereal Collective." Voss turned around quickly. The Ethereal Collective rarely spoke to anyone. They were older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Some said they had been traveling between stars when the Zephyrian Empire was still learning to make fire. "What do they want?" Voss asked. This activated a small device in his clawed hand. A voice filled the air. It sounded like wind through empty caves. The words were clear but strange. "Children of Zephyr, we bring you warning. Do not approach the 3rd planet of the Sol system. The humans have made it a trap. Turn back while you still can. Do not say we did not warn you." The message ended. Silence filled the great hall. Voss laughed. The sound echoed off the stone walls. "A trap? Those primitive creatures? We have watched them for 50 years, They still use chemical rockets to leave their planet. They fight wars with metal bullets. What trap could they possibly set for us?" "Perhaps we should listen to the Ethereals," Thais said carefully. "They have seen much in their long lives." "They are jealous," Voss said with a wave of his hand. "The Ethereals ruled the galaxy once. Now they hide in the dark corners of space. They do not want to see our empire grow stronger." Thais said nothing. He had served the Empire for 300 years. He had seen many worlds fall to their mighty fleets, but something about this felt different. "Bring me the human prisoners," Voss commanded. 2 guards dragged 2 humans into the hall. The first was a man with short brown hair and tired eyes. His name was Jake Morrison. He had been a captain on a human ship that the Empire had captured 6 months ago. The second prisoner was a woman with long black hair. Dr. Lisa Hayes had been on the same ship studying alien lifeforms. Both humans wore chains around their hands and feet. Their clothes were torn and dirty, but their eyes still showed defiance. "Tell me about your planet's defenses," Voss said to Jake. Jake looked up at the towering alien. "I already told you everything. We have some space stations. A few old warships, nothing that could stop your empire. Yet the Ethereals warn us that Earth is a trap. Explain this." Jake's face showed confusion. "The Ethereals? I don't know who that is." "Look, I've told you the truth. Earth doesn't have the technology to fight your empire, but that doesn't mean we'll just give up." Dr. Hayes stepped forward as much as her chains would allow. "What Jake means is that humans don't surrender easily. We might not have your advanced weapons, but we'll find a way to fight." Voss studied both humans carefully. He had interrogated prisoners from dozens of worlds. These 2 seemed genuine. They were afraid, as all prisoners should be. But they also showed the same stubborn pride he had seen in humans before. "Your species interests me," Voss said. "In 50 years of watching Earth, we have learned much about humans. You fight wars constantly. You never seem to learn from your mistakes. You destroy your own environment. Yet you also show remarkable creativity when faced with impossible situations. Creativity won't stop your invasion fleet," Jake said bitterly. "No, it will not." Voss turned to face the holographic display of Earth again. "Fleet Commander Zess, how many ships do we have ready for the invasion?" Another Zephyrian officer stepped forward. His armor gleamed with battle honors from a dozen conquered worlds. 500 warships, Admiral, each one capable of destroying any human vessel with a single shot. And our intelligence reports? Complete, sir. We know the location of every major human city. We have mapped their military bases. We have studied their weapons. The humans have approximately 200 spacecraft capable of space combat. None of them pose a threat to our shields. Voss nodded with satisfaction. The ethereals grow old and fearful. They see threats where none exist. High Counselor Theiss moved closer to the Admiral. Perhaps the trap they speak of is not military. Humans are known for their unpredictable nature. Unpredictable, yes, but not dangerous to us. Voss gestured to the prisoners. Take them back to their cells. Tomorrow we begin the invasion. In 1 week, Earth will be another world in our empire. As the guards dragged Jake and Lisa away, Jake called out over his shoulder. You're making a mistake. Humans might not have your technology, but we learn fast, and we never forget. The great hall fell silent again. Voss stared at the image of Earth spinning slowly in the holographic display. Such a small world, so far from the center of the galaxy. What trap could creatures who still used chemical rockets possibly set? High Counselor Theiss remained in the hall after the others had left. He studied the image of Earth with his ancient eyes. In his long life, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about this invasion felt wrong. But Admiral Voss had made his decision. The Zephyrian Empire had never been defeated. 500 worlds had fallen to their fleets. Earth would be world number 501. The old counselor whispered a prayer to the ancient gods of his people. He hoped the ethereals were wrong about the trap. But more than that, he hoped the Empire would survive whatever was waiting for them in the Sol system. The holographic image of Earth continued to spin slowly in the empty hall. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. It looked so peaceful from space, so innocent. Tomorrow, the invasion fleet would leave Zephyrian space. In 3 days, they would reach Earth. The Empire would discover if the ethereal's warning had been wisdom or fear. But by then, it might already be too late. The Zephyrian invasion fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. 500 warships spread across the solar system in perfect formation. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Their black hulls gleamed with energy shields that could stop any known weapon. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the view screen show Earth's solar system ahead. The yellow sun grew brighter as they approached. Soon they would reach the outer planets. Admiral, called Navigation Officer Drex, we are approaching the asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. Should we go around it? Voss looked at the tactical display. Thousands of rocks floated in a wide band around the sun. Some were as small as houses. Others were as big as cities. The Empire's intelligence report said humans used some of these rocks for mining operations. No need to go around, Voss said. Our shields can handle a few floating rocks. Take us straight through. I want to reach Earth quickly. The fleet entered the asteroid belt. At first, everything seemed normal. Large rocks drifted past their ships harmlessly. The Zephyrian shields pushed aside any debris that came too close. Then the first explosion lit up space. Admiral, shouted Weapons Officer Krall. The destroyer Talon just exploded. No warning, no distress signal, it's just gone. Before Voss could respond, 2 more ships vanished in bright flashes of light. Then 3 more. The bridge filled with alarm signals as ship after ship reported they were under attack. Where are the enemy ships? Voss demanded. Sensors, give me a full scan. Sir, I'm not detecting any ships, just asteroids and debris. Another explosion. This time Voss saw it happen on the main screen. A Zephyrian cruiser was moving past a large asteroid when suddenly the rock split open. Hidden weapon platforms emerged and fired powerful energy beams at point-blank range. The cruiser's shields failed instantly. The ship broke apart and died. The asteroids, Voss shouted. They've turned the asteroids into weapons platforms. All across the belt, rocks that had seemed natural suddenly revealed their true nature. Hidden doors opened. Gun batteries emerged. What the Zephyrians had thought was empty space was actually a massive defensive network. On a hidden base inside asteroid designation XK-739, Commander Maya Rodriguez watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction. She was a small woman, with short gray hair and steady hands. For 15 years she had commanded the asteroid mining operations. But mining had been only part of the job. Control, this is Rodriguez. First wave is successful. We've taken down 23 enemy ships. The voice that answered came from deep inside the earth. General Alex Carter sat in a command center buried 2 miles under the Rocky Mountains. Banks of computers surrounded him, showing the battle happening millions of miles away. Good work. Maya, Phase 2 is ready. Begin hit-and-run attacks. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Roger that, General. All units execute Serpent Protocol. The hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt began to move. They were not fixed positions, but mobile weapons, platforms disguised as rocks. They could change position, strike, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The Zephyrian fleet found themselves fighting ghosts. Every time they targeted an enemy position, it vanished. New attacks came from unexpected directions. Their formation began to break apart as ships tried to protect themselves from threats they could not see. "This is impossible," Voss shouted. "How did primitives build such defenses?" High Counselor Thiss had joined the Admiral on the bridge. His ancient face showed no surprise. "Perhaps they are not as primitive as we believed." 20 more Zephyrian ships died in the next hour. The fleet that had entered the asteroid belt with confidence was now fighting for survival. Finally, Voss made the hard choice. All ships, maximum speed, push through to the inner system. We cannot fight an enemy we cannot see. The remaining ships accelerated past the asteroid belt. Behind them, the hidden bases fell silent. They had done their job. The mighty Zephyrian fleet was now down to 470 ships, but Earth was still ahead of them. As the fleet approached the inner planets, they saw Earth's moon growing larger on their screens. Intelligence reports said it was a dead rock with a few small human research stations. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I'm reading strange energy signatures from the moon. Very faint, but definitely artificial." "Probably just their research equipment," Voss said. But his voice lacked confidence. The asteroid belt had taught him that human intelligence reports might be wrong. The fleet moved closer to Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from space. White clouds swirled over brown continents and blue oceans. Cities sparkled with lights on the night side of the world. "Begin landing preparations," Voss ordered. "I want ground troops ready to deploy in 30 minutes. That was when the moon opened fire. The lunar surface split apart like a flower blooming in reverse. Massive weapon platforms rose from hidden chambers deep inside the satellite. Energy cannons the size of skyscrapers turned toward the Zephyrian fleet. "Impossible," whispered Voss. "They hollowed out their own moon." The first salvo from the lunar weapons destroyed 15 ships instantly. The beams were unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. They passed right through energy shields as if they were not there. In his underground command center, General Carter watched the battle through dozens of satellite feeds. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years preparing for this day. "Lunar Command, this is Carter. Nice shooting. Keep them busy while our fleet gets into position." "Fleet?" Thiss asked Voss. "What fleet?" "Our intelligence said they had less than 200 ships." The answer came as new contacts appeared on the Zephyrian sensors. Ships emerged from behind the moon, from the shadow of Earth, from hidden positions throughout the inner system. Not 200 ships, but nearly 300. And these were not the primitive vessels the intelligence reports had described. The human ships moved with deadly precision. Their hulls were sleek and dark, designed for stealth. Their weapons fired energy beams that could punch through Zephyrian armor like paper. Admiral Tom Bradley commanded the human fleet from his flagship, the ESN Defiance. He was younger than Carter, with black hair and sharp green eyes. He had been waiting in the outer system for years, preparing for this moment. All ships attack pattern Delta. Target their command vessels first. Make them blind before we make them dead. The battle for Earth's solar system had truly begun, but the Zephyrians were starting to realize they were not fighting primitives with chemical rockets. They were fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this war for decades. More Zephyrian ships died. Their formations scattered as human vessels attacked from all sides. What should have been an easy conquest was becoming a nightmare. In his cell aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Jake Morrison felt the ship shake from weapons impacts. He looked at Dr. Hayes and smiled grimly. "Sounds like the cavalry has arrived," he said. Dr. Hayes nodded. "I wonder if they're starting to understand what the ethereals tried to tell them." Above them on the bridge, Admiral Voss was beginning to learn that lesson the hard way. Earth was indeed a trap, but not the kind of trap he had ever imagined. The battle around Earth grew more intense with each passing hour. Zephyrian ships exploded in bright flashes while human vessels darted between them like deadly fish. Admiral Voss watched his fleet shrink from 500 ships to 400, then to 350. "We must land troops on the planet," Voss told his officers. "Our ships are being picked apart up here. Once we control the surface, we can force their surrender." High Counselor Thiss shook his head slowly. "Admiral, perhaps we should consider retreat. We have lost nearly a third of our fleet." "Retreat?" Voss's 6 arms gestured angrily. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat. We will take this planet and make an example of these humans." 100 transport ships broke away from the main fleet. Each one carried 1,000 soldiers. They descended toward Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot from the friction. The transports aimed for the major cities that intelligence had identified: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. These were the centers of human power. Once they fell, Earth would surrender. But as the first transports entered the atmosphere, something strange happened. The cities below began to change. Buildings that had looked solid suddenly folded inward. Streets opened up like flower petals. What had appeared to be a normal city revealed itself to be something else entirely. Transport Captain Zek commanded the first ship to reach New York. He watched in confusion as the city transformed below him. "What is happening down there?" His answer came in the form of weapons fire. The buildings were not buildings at all, but massive gun platforms. The streets were not streets, but launching tubes for missiles. The entire city was one giant weapon. "It's a fake," Zek shouted into his radio. "The whole city is fake. It's all weapons." His transport exploded before he could say more. All across Earth, the same scene played out. Every major city the Zephyrians had studied was revealed to be an elaborate trap. Automated defense systems emerged from fake buildings. Missile batteries rose from false streets. Anti-aircraft guns disguised as monuments opened fire. The 100 transport ships died in minutes. Not a single Zephyrian soldier reached the ground, alive. In his underground command center, General Carter watched the defense systems work perfectly. 20 years of planning and construction had paid off. The fake cities had fooled the aliens completely. "Phase 3 is complete," he reported to his staff. "All transport ships destroyed, beginning Phase 4. Dr. Rachel Kim stood at a control panel nearby. She was a small woman with wild black hair and thick glasses. In her hands, she held the key to Earth's most deadly weapon. "Quantum disruptors are ready, General," she said. "All enemy ships are within range." "Fire when ready, Doctor." Dr. Kim pressed a series of buttons. High above Earth, invisible beams of energy reached out toward the Zephyrian fleet. The beams passed through the aliens' energy shields as if they were made of paper. But instead of destroying the ships, the beams did something worse. The quantum disruptors attacked the very atoms that made up the Zephyrian hulls. Metal began to break apart at the molecular level. Ship after ship simply came apart like toys made of sand. "Impossible!" Voss screamed as he watched his flagship's hull develop cracks. "Nothing can penetrate our shields." "The beams are not hitting our shields," reported his science officer. "They are passing through them somehow. Our hull is breaking apart from the inside." Emergency systems activated throughout the fleet. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries suddenly found themselves helpless. Their weapons were useless, their shields meant nothing. They were being destroyed by a technology they could not understand. But the humans were not finished yet. Captain Steve Murphy piloted his fighter through the chaos of battle. He was a young man with red hair and a crooked smile. His ship, the Lightning, was one of hundreds of small craft that had suddenly appeared from hidden bases all over the solar system. "Control, this is Murphy. Beginning attack run on the flagship." "Roger, Murphy. All fighters coordinate with the fleet. Let's finish this." The human fighters moved like a swarm of angry bees. They were too small and too fast for the Zephyrian weapons to track, but their own weapons could punch through alien armor with ease. Admiral, Tom Bradley watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the enemy fleet came apart. His ships had been hiding in the outer system for years, waiting for this moment. They had used the time well, developing new weapons and tactics. All ships, target, the command vessels, cut off their heads and the body will die. The human fleet closed in on what remained of the Zephyrian force. Their weapons were unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Energy beams that could bend around corners, missiles that could think for themselves, gravity weapons that could crush a ship from the inside out. But perhaps the most shocking thing was not the weapons themselves, but how the humans used them. Every attack was coordinated. Every move was planned. The humans fought like they had been preparing for this exact battle for decades, because they had been. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarms screamed throughout the corridors. Half the ship was falling apart from the quantum disruptor attack. The other half was being torn apart by human weapons fire. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Vex, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." "Put it through," Voss said, his voice hollow with defeat. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was General Carter, speaking from his underground command center. His voice was calm and steady. "Admiral Voss of the Zephyrian Empire, I am General Alex Carter of the Earth Defense Force. You have one chance to surrender. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded." "Never," Voss snarled. "The Zephyrian Empire will never surrender to primitives." Carter's expression did not change. "Then you will all die. This is your last warning." The transmission ended. Around the flagship, the last of the Zephyrian fleet was being systematically destroyed. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were dying like insects. In their cell, Jake Morrison and Dr. Hayes felt the ship shake as another explosion rocked the hull. They could hear running feet in the corridors outside, shouts in the alien language, the sound of fear. "Think they're starting to understand now?" Hayes asked. Jake nodded. "The ethereals tried to warn them. Earth is a trap. But not the kind they expected." "What kind of trap is it then?" Jake smiled grimly as another explosion shook the ship. "The kind that's been 50 years in the making. The kind that turns your own strength against you. The kind that makes you realize you never had a chance to begin with." Outside their cell, the Zephyrian Empire was learning that lesson the hard way. They had come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they had found a civilization that had been preparing for galactic war since before most of them were born. Earth was indeed a trap, but it was not just a trap for the Zephyrian fleet. It was a trap for the entire idea that might makes right. It was a trap for bullies who thought smaller meant weaker, and now the trap had been sprung. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his dying flagship and watched his empire crumble. Of the 500 ships that had entered the Sol system, fewer than 50 remained. The rest were scattered debris floating in space. "All ships retreat," he commanded. "Fall back to the outer system." The surviving Zephyrian vessels tried to escape. Their engines screamed as they pushed toward the edge of the solar system. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Some of the alien crew members felt relief. They were leaving the trap behind, but their relief did not last long. "Admiral," called sensor operator Thex, his voice shaking. "I'm detecting new ships ahead of us, blocking our escape route." Voss looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. Dozens of human ships waited in the darkness beyond the outer planets. They had been hidden there all along, waiting for exactly this moment. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the lead, human ship. He was a tall man with brown hair and scars on his hands from years of combat training. His ship, the Ranger, had been patrolling the outer system for 3 years. "Control, this is Foster. The fish are swimming toward our net." "General." Carter's voice came through the radio from Earth. "Roger, Foster. No survivors. We cannot let word of this battle reach the Empire." Foster smiled grimly. "Understood, General. All ships, attack formation. Light them up." The human ships opened fire, but these were not the same weapons that had been used in the battle around Earth. These were different, designed for hunting ships in open space. The Zephyrian vessels found themselves caught between two forces. Behind them, Admiral Bradley's fleet was catching up. Ahead of them, Foster's ships blocked the escape route. They were trapped. "This is impossible," Voss shouted. "How many ships do they have?" High Counselor Thys, his ancient face pale with fear, checked the tactical readings. "At least 400 human vessels, Admiral. They have been waiting for us." 400. Our intelligence said they had less than 200 ships total. Our intelligence was wrong about many things, Thys said quietly. The battle was not really a battle. It was a slaughter. The human ships worked together like a pack of wolves. They surrounded individual Zephyrian vessels and destroyed them one by one. Within 2 hours, only Admiral Voss's flagship remained, but the humans did not destroy it. Instead, they surrounded it and waited. On Earth, General Carter was receiving reports from across the galaxy. Lieutenant Sarah Parker sat at a communications console, her blonde hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She had been monitoring alien radio frequencies for months. "General," she said, "we're getting messages from 17 different star systems. The rebellions have started." Carter nodded with satisfaction. "How many species have joined the uprising?" 43 so far, sir. The Altarians were the first to rise up after we broadcast the battle. The Centauri followed 6 hours later. Word is spreading fast. Across the galaxy, something incredible was happening. Species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrian Empire for centuries were rising up. They had watched the broadcast of the battle at Earth. They had seen the mighty Zephyrian fleet destroyed by a supposedly primitive world. If humans could defeat the Empire, maybe they could too. Commander Nick Davis worked from a hidden base on Mars. He was a quiet man with gray eyes and steady hands. For 5 years he had been coordinating with resistance movements across the galaxy. "Phoenix Base, this is Davis. Operation Freedom is in full swing. We have uprisings on 40 worlds, and counting." The voice that answered came from a secret facility in the asteroid belt. "Roger, Davis, are our weapons shipments getting through?" "Affirmative. The resistance groups are reporting that human weapons work perfectly against Zephyrian armor. Their morale is higher than ever." Davis smiled as he looked at his star charts. Red dots marked worlds where rebellions had started. Green dots showed worlds where human weapons had been secretly delivered. Blue dots indicated Zephyrian military bases under attack. The Empire was falling apart. But the biggest shock came when the humans revealed their greatest secret. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Hayes were no longer in their cell. They stood in the ship's command center, no longer wearing chains. Their torn clothes had been replaced with clean uniforms. Admiral Voss stared at them in confusion. "How did you escape? Where are your guards?" Jake smiled. "We didn't escape, Admiral. We were never really prisoners." "What do you mean?" Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "We mean that we were never captured. We came here on purpose. We volunteered for this mission 3 years ago." The truth hit Voss like a physical blow. "You're spies." "Deep cover agents," Jake corrected. "We've been feeding information back to Earth for months. Every detail about your fleet, your weapons, your plans. We know everything about the Zephyrian Empire. But the ship we captured you from, the battle, was staged," Hayes said. "We made sure you would capture us. We made sure you would bring us here. We've been inside your command structure for half a year." Voss fell into his command chair. His 6 arms hung limp at his sides. "How many of you are there?" "Agents. Hundreds. We've been infiltrating the Empire for 10 years. We know about every major military base, every supply depot, every weakness." On the bridge view screen, Admiral Voss could see human ships surrounding his flagship. But now he understood. This was not just a military defeat. This was the result of years of careful planning. Jake activated a small device he had hidden in his uniform. "General Carter, this is Morrison. The flagship is secure. We have complete intelligence on all remaining Zephyrian forces." Carter's voice came through clearly. "Excellent work, Jake. Both of you. The information you provided made this victory possible." Throughout the galaxy, other human agents were revealing themselves. They had been waiting for this moment, the moment when the Empire's power was broken. the moment when the enslaved worlds would finally rise up. On the Zephyrian homeworld, chaos ruled. News of the fleet's destruction had reached the capital. Panic spread through the streets. The government that had ruled 1,000 worlds suddenly found itself fighting for survival. But the most devastating blow came when the Ethereal Collective finally answered Admiral Voss's desperate attempts to contact them. The ancient voice filled the flagship's communication system. "Children of Zephyr, you did not listen to our warning. Please," Voss begged, "help us understand. What did you know about the humans?" "We knew what they are. We have watched them for 1,000 years. We have seen them turn every defeat into victory, every weakness into strength, every disadvantage into a weapon. But they are primitives. Are they? Tell us, Admiral. What have you learned about humans in these past days?" Voss was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew listened to every word. "They don't just fight wars," he said finally. "They prepare for them for years, for decades. They think about every possibility." "Yes. And what else? They turn their enemies' strength against them. They make traps out of everything, even their own weakness." "And what is their greatest weapon?" Voss thought about the rebellion spreading across the galaxy. The hope he had seen in the eyes of enslaved species. The way humans had inspired others to fight. "Hope," he whispered. "They weaponize hope itself." The ethereal voice spoke one final time. "Now you understand, Admiral. Humans do not just fight for themselves. They fight for the idea that the strong should not rule the weak simply because they can. That is why we warned you. That is why we tried to save you." The communication ended. Admiral Voss sat in his command chair, surrounded by the wreckage of his empire. Around him, the galaxy was changing. Species that had been slaves for centuries were becoming free. And it had all started with a single blue planet that had seemed so helpless from space. Earth had indeed been a trap, but not just for the Zephyrian fleet. It had been a trap for the entire idea of conquest through force. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrian Empire fell. The galaxy looked very different now. Where once a single empire had ruled with fear, hundreds of free worlds now worked together in peace. President Laura Mitchell sat in her new office on the space station that orbited Earth. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair. The people of Earth had elected her to lead them into this new age of galactic cooperation. Through her window, she could see ships from dozens of different worlds docked at the station. Altarian vessels with their silver hulls, Centauri ships that looked like living creatures. Even some former Zephyrian worlds had sent representatives. "Madam President," said her assistant, walking into the office, "Admiral Voss is here for his appointment." Mitchell nodded. "Send him in." Admiral Voss entered the room slowly. He no longer wore the proud uniform of the Zephyrian Empire. Instead, he wore simple gray clothes like any other prisoner. But he was not in chains. The humans had given him freedom to move around the station. "Admiral," Mitchell said, gesturing to a chair, "please sit down." Voss sat carefully, his 6 arms folded in his lap. "I still do not understand why you treat me with such kindness. I came here to conquer your world." "You did what you thought was right for your people," Mitchell replied. "Now you can help us build something better. My empire is gone. My people hate me for leading them into this disaster. What could I possibly offer?" Mitchell smiled gently. "Experience, wisdom, the chance to make sure this never happens again." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Green dots marked the worlds that had joined the new Free Worlds Alliance. There were over 300 of them now. "We're building something new, Admiral. Not an empire that rules through fear, but an alliance that protects through cooperation." Voss studied the display. "And if someone tries to conquer these worlds, what then?" "Then they will face the same thing you faced. Every free world defending every other free world. No conqueror will ever again face just one planet. They will face all of us." On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Chris Taylor was meeting with leaders from the former Zephyrian colonies. He was a young man with bright blue eyes and an easy smile. His job was to help former enemy worlds join the alliance. The terms are simple, he explained to the assembled delegates. No slavery, no conquest of other worlds. Work together to defend freedom. That's all we ask. A tall alien with purple skin raised one of his forearms. And in return, protection, trade, technology sharing, the chance to be part of something bigger than yourselves. Another delegate, this one with green scales and worried eyes, spoke up. But what about the ethereals? They have been silent since the war ended. What if they decide we are a threat? Taylor smiled. Actually, they asked to meet with us. Tomorrow, in fact. The delegates gasped. The ethereal collective had barely spoken to anyone for thousands of years. Now they wanted a meeting? The next day, Ambassador Taylor stood in a vast chamber on a space station at the edge of known space. The room was filled with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A figure materialized in the center of the room. It was tall and thin, made of what looked like flowing energy. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through crystal caves. Greetings, Ambassador Taylor of Earth. I am Speaker Valdris of the Ethereal Collective. Taylor bowed respectfully. It's an honor to meet you, Speaker. We've wanted to talk with your people for a long time. We know. We have been watching your species for many centuries. We have been waiting. Waiting for what? For someone like you to arise. Someone who could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The ethereal moved closer. Around the chamber, other energy beings began to appear. The ancient council of the Ethereal Collective. Long ago, Speaker Valdris continued, we ruled much of this galaxy, but we learned that ruling others brings only sorrow, so we withdrew. We have been waiting for a species that would learn this lesson without needing to make our mistakes. And you think humans are that species? You defeated the greatest empire in the galaxy, but instead of building your own empire, you freed the enslaved worlds. Instead of ruling them, you invited them to join you as equals. This is why we waited. This is why we helped prepare you. Taylor's eyes widened. You helped prepare us? Did you think humans developed such advanced technology on their own? Did you think you learned to hide your civilization across an entire solar system without guidance? The truth slowly dawned on Taylor. You've been helping us for years, decades, maybe centuries. We have been subtle. A scientific breakthrough here. A technological advance there. We helped your species develop the tools you would need. But the wisdom to use them correctly came from you alone. On Earth, Dr. Emma Clark was studying the implications of this revelation. She was a young woman with wild red hair and excited eyes. Her job was to understand how humanity's relationship with the galaxy was changing. The data is incredible, she told General Carter as they walked through her laboratory. Energy signatures in our technology that match ethereal patterns, quantum mechanics principles that appeared in human science centuries before we should have discovered them. Carter nodded thoughtfully. They've been preparing us for this role all along. It appears so. But the question is, what role exactly? Their answer came from an unexpected source. High Counselor Thys, the ancient Zephyrian advisor, had requested a meeting. He sat across from them in a small conference room, his spider-like legs folded beneath him. I have served many masters in my long life, Thys said. I have seen the rise and fall of a dozen empires, but I have never seen anything like what humans have accomplished. What do you mean? Dr. Clark asked. Other species conquer through strength. Humans conquer through inspiration. You do not take worlds. You free them. You do not rule subjects. You create allies. Is that what we've done? Thys gestured toward a window that showed the busy space station outside. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved through space in perfect harmony. Look around you. In 6 months you have created something that took the Zephyrian Empire centuries to build. But your alliance is stronger because it is built on choice, not fear. General Carter leaned forward. What are you trying to tell us, Thys? I am trying to tell you that humanity has become something new in the galaxy. You are not conquerors. You are liberators. You are not rulers. You are protectors. 3 days later, President Mitchell stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. Representatives from over 400 worlds had come to the first assembly of free worlds. Today, she said, her voice broadcast to billions of beings across the galaxy, we establish a new principle. No world stands alone. No species faces extinction in silence. No tyrant will ever again terrorize the innocent without facing all of us united. The assembly cheered. Not just humans, but hundreds of different species, all united by the simple idea that freedom was worth protecting. In the audience, Admiral Voss watched and listened. For the first time in months, he smiled. His empire was gone, but something better had taken its place. After the ceremony, he approached President Mitchell. I understand now, he said quietly. Understand what, Admiral? The trap. Earth was never just a military trap. It was a trap for the idea that might makes right. You did not just defeat our ships, you defeated our way of thinking. Mitchell nodded. And now? Now I want to help. I want to make sure no other species makes the same mistakes we did. As the day ended, ships from the assembly began to leave for their home worlds. They carried with them more than just memories of the gathering. They carried hope. They carried the promise that they would never again face the darkness alone. Tiato. Ethereal collective watched from their hidden stations throughout the galaxy. After thousands of years of waiting, they had finally found what they had been looking for. A species that could unite the galaxy not through conquest, but through liberation. Not through fear, but through hope. Earth had indeed been a trap, but it had caught something far more valuable than an enemy fleet. It had caught the attention of an entire galaxy and shown them that there was another way to live. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun, and humanity, the species that had seemed so primitive from space, had become the guardians of that freedom. The trap had worked perfectly.